Maria here with my colleague
INNOSSETU.
live in Kampala, Uganda. It is, of course, 14 minutes past 8 a.m. in the morning. The weather is cool and nice and good. And yeah, so well. Today's topic is about poverty versus corruption in Africa. I hope that, I hope, lie too long is of course going to catch up with us today because it's always usually up at this time. We can't wait to see him. And of course, and for all those who will just catch up our replay, all those who will be watching us live, this is Black Hot Fire Network where you find every issue concerning the Africans and the Black people of the world. For those on Facebook, we are on Black Hot Fire Network Radio 1. And on YouTube, we are Black Hot Fire Network 1, right?
No,
Live.
Black Hot Fire Network.
All right, playing like that, shit like that. Yeah, that no said that studio, so I don't know the locations you went to. So it's me once again, Africa Maria and INNOSSETU, driving you throughout the hearts of Kampala, T, wherever you are. Allow us bring Africa to your doorsteps this morning with our topic, the poverty and versus corruption in Africa. First of all, corruption is a dishonest, or we define corruption as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Uh, Even that someone may look at corruption at a bigger scale or at a smaller scale, but the moment you abuse the entrusted power for your own selfish gain, definitely you're carrying out corruption. We see this at the biggest example in corruption does not only lie within the government officials but also private sectors. And we have experienced this. It goes beyond even to schools, that even some people have to pay in to get grades. Either you pay with your body sexually or give in cash, it depends. But corruption is expanding to a larger scale in the African concept. And our society is beginning to embrace this as a normal norm, like it's a daily thing. It's a so well to the point that we no longer feel the heat of corruption. To the point that at every day as you wake up to move out of your door, you have to secure a certain amount of money just in case. And this makes this is making corruption become part of our day-to-day life, that we are even becoming proud of it because for example, you may know you're going for a job interview, but you don't come empty-handed.
You're going with something.
Yeah, and you will know you want to park your car somewhere, but you have to come with the something because the whoever will be guarding the cars, whether it is in the parking yard, as you're coming out, you have to squeeze something. And usually what they do, they're like, yeah, okay, when they are putting money in your hand. And people always know. So I think it's gonna be funny. I think I'm the only person who has never received money, corrupt money before. What are the said name was it?
Let me see. Mm,
I've never.
I've never.
I've never. Though I've worked, I remember. Though I've worked in places, most of the places I've worked in have been places of vulnerable people. They're either old, they're either young children going for a shit. At times, you would have files that you're handling, and usually when these people want money, abayagala sente naye ayinza okujja n'emitwalo ng'etaano when they want to give you so that you can process their things. Isn't that corruption?
Yeah, it is.
So corruption that comes from a client, not you. What is that? What kind of corruption is that? I mean, but I guess it is categorized. Because me, I would see grown up people back at the tuyambe batudukiza ebintu byaffe batuwefa ero sente z'abaana bagenda kusoma. And at times I would be like, me, I just refuse because they are.
The praise for corruption is brave.
Mm.
That's how it comes about.
So
Mm.
they would give me. They would give me some money so that I help process their documents and stuff. And at times I'll be like, I can't do it. Just take your money, but I'll help you because they were elderly. You look at someone so grown. So what all these people know, and the issue of corruption has spoiled a lot of things. That anytime, even when you are failing to deliver, as not because of anything, someone will be like, should I give you money so that you can, you know, fasten? Should I give you the money so that you can speed up? Do you need something so that you can help me quickly? So it's like at times corruption has overclouded, our services and the way we deliver things. That in case there is any issue, someone feels like you're not doing this because you're not being given money. But at times when your hands are tied about specific issues. Now we have experienced a high rate of corruption within the government officials. For example, the police. And this is why we are having services that are not fully delivered and improper services. That we are seeing a lot of people who are actually not supposed to be in fields doing things that doing it because they have money. And corruption is also the reason why we have a very big difference between the poor and the rich. For example, usually people who come, Africans who come from humble background, always focus on education. These people, they know where they come from, and they know there is nothing that can, that there is nothing that can. Okay, over after. So there is nothing that can secure their future rather than them attaining a good education. So you find the reason why we have most of the unemployed people on the streets with their certificates are people from humble background. And the people who have not even got good grades are in offices because their families have money. You go for a job and you do an interview, you're very smart, you're capable of passing and everything, but you're not given this job simply because you don't have the money. They may be asking for something like uh 300 US dollars and you don't have it. And because you don't have money is the reason why you're looking for a job. And then somebody comes in and says, La, I'm going to give you 600. I'm doubling that. I'm doubling it by 3. Definitely put my boy. And this is how. That's why some other people usually call it lobbying. They use like
Western countries, that simple word.
Yeah, we are lobbying for you. You're not giving people the same opportunity. You're not giving people the same right. And with the next time lobbying for you stuff.
But we know corruption is everywhere. But Western countries, European countries, they distance themselves away from the word corruption. But they talk about robbing every time and then. So how about those people talk about corruption in their countries? They say too much corruption is in Africa.
Yeah.
For them, they have that robbing in their countries. They will get a corruption.
So okay. I think lobbying is a smart way.
Smart way of expressing smart way of expressing corruption.
Like they always say that lobbying means influencing or attempting to influence legislative action or non-action through oral or written communication on an attempt to obtain the goodwill of a member or employee of the legislature. The moment you influence someone, no matter how, so I think that they feel like that is a smart way of carrying out corruption. So we have seen a lot as one of corruption because also we have seen a lot in Africa, and I always attribute these incapabilities. I always attribute these growth circumstances to corruption. Corruption has not given Africans the liberty to exercise their power, to exercise their abilities to do things. That no matter how able you are, at the end of the day, they are going to take someone who has some money, and you're going to be left alone. Um, Official corruption has been widespread in new African countries in the post-colonial period and has contributed to considerably to political instability, public distrust of the government, and economic reverse and failure to attract foreign capital. All the time, these people keep on talking about Africa is corrupt, Africa is corrupt. Everybody talking about Africa's corruption, but we know corruption is a worldwide thing. Corruption causes can be categorized according to the status of corrupt officials. That is to say, petty officials and top-level officials. Petty officials are influenced by problems arising from the emergence of new societies and by the traditional society structures such as extended family system, encouraging parasitism. When people want to feed on others, apparently
that is the corruption we are talking about.
Corruption comes straight now with African corruption. It comes straight from homes. Like I said, in case someone is using their power to do something that so it comes straight up. There are some families that practice corruption unknowingly and they don't know they are doing this. The other they come for family meetings. We are coming for family gathering. Someone even wants to sell land, family land. For them, they will get these big uncles to represent them. So corruption has expanded not only to the outside, people in the family, but even within the family, more especially when it is categorized with greed. This is the family corruption is usually associated with the greedy people within the family. It also extends to societies that you will find people believing a family ya gundi all the time. So this brings a struggle for power, and which leaves the poor, you see, and the ones who are rich get more rich. So it's crazy, but that's how corruption. Major corruption results from abuse of power and privilege of high office. Now we know that typically minor corrupt officials are tried and prosecuted, while corrupt officials in high offices remain untouchable. We always see there is a certain time where the government of Uganda was marching. Even the president of Uganda actually marched in a fight of corruption. We have the anti-corruption collusion. There is that
anti-corruption unit, something.
I think it's unity or collusion.
They even elected someone, a leader, and she was a general in the army. Afande Nakalema. So she was the one who was leading that anti-corruption unit. So whenever they could sense corruption somewhere, she could.
When she was given that, she was given, ojjukira abantu beyakwata. Ojjukira bakamuwa obuyinza abantu beyakwata. They are government officials ne babatwala ne Luzira. So most of the people we usually see being arrested
Mm,
as corrupt officials are the petty ones.
mm,
The big officials are always untouchable.
mm, mm,
I remember there is a time, and usually this corruption is general corruption.
mm,
Now that is crazy. Arresting corrupt officials come with corruption on it,
mm,
because I realized that these people was the let me use an example on me.
mm,
Innosetu probably gets to know that Maria is corrupt. You understand? And you want my position. This is how arresting this official comes. So what you do on the amorokwe, but you want my what? No what?
Position.
And you give money to those so-called officials who
Officials.
are arresting corrupt people. You
Mm,
are already corrupting them to carry out this. You are bribing them to carry out whatever you want, and that's why for some time they've been arresting corrupt officials in Uganda through that. I remember there was a certain time back when an officer,
mm,
uh, I think they sent someone okuja mu office and blah blah, so they wrote ne bawandika ku send
mhm.
on the money. They wrote on the money. Ah, they came. You had asked money. Kyalino na mitwalo etaano, not even too much money.
Before I go far, I have the other aunt of mine. I told you the OC.
Mm,
Bawe, he was Omulamuzi
mm,
judge
mm,
yeah,
mm,
during those days, but yafuna bribe
mm,
from a client.
mm.
Kati client n'abyongerayo omusango ono ng'amaze okukola ki
Ogusaza.
mitwalo n'abiri. The guy was getting over 2.5 every month. Emmotoka avuga yaweerera, amafuta anywa gaweere. The guy was rich, super rich. Naye kati w'omulaba kati
Just
w'omulaba
emitwalo abiri.
emitwalo
Naye ogwo
abiri
omululu guba kati abiri agwibwe
Kyokka
bakuwaabira
nga-
kukolera ekyo.
kyokka-
Tuli baavu bwe tuti.
Eh,
Naye gwe olaba ne laptop yatulema otunda ku abiri. Kati oyo omusajja omukulu afuna 2.5 ng'olina access to all those things, abiri gakukolera eki? Abantu
amafuta
baba
gabwere buli
n'amagulu.
kimu kya bwereere, ate nga ne what nga ne wasula basasulawo kyokka nga yalina amaka. Naye w'omulaba baawo w'omulaba akati akeera ku makya sits there n'atuulaawo n'akubira n'atandika osabiriza. Even the people, and hear the matrix behind all this. When you're out of power, the people that are in power neglect you.
A lot.
Wakubira nti wali asobola kukwata masimu ge. Omwana we n'asoma naye bwa judge Makeera, I think he graduated. Naye musiru yagraduating, omanyi like to reach that final moment ng'olina retake mu semester 1 first year naye nga togimanyi. Kaba nti ekisiruuse kyali.
I think muzeeyi yasalawo asomesa omwana ajjeyamu.
He has a lot of kids. Naye oyo yamufaanana is the one that took.
But that is greed.
Yes,
Usually people who carry out corruption
mitwalo
are
abiri.
greed.
Even her woman talks about that. The guy was rich. Bana ebiseera ebyo nga biraganga.
Kati bakkakkana.
Kati wakuba kati omukazi munene ayina.
Naye abandibadde balina munyo. Nze my mom, olaba maama lwaki mom doesn't have sente nnyingi. Butalya nguzi. Naye nga mu butalya nguzi bwe yali blessed. Mom used to work on a case. Omuntu ng'amaze okukwata keesi y'omuntu ne baleeta embuzi nga tagisabye, ne baleeta amatooke, ne baleeta obudomola bw'amata. You understand? Just to appreciate. But most of the people paka balina kuwanguzi. I remember there was a certain time mama bamuwa embuzi. Ndoza embuzi eyo yavaako kanaaluzaala. Yazaalanga obwana
Yeah.
Really, I have family issues. So anyway, I think now that man, I'm sorry to say, he deserved it.
200
Because how can you be getting all that huge sum of money and then you take
with
little money from a
huge
poor person?
allowances, with huge
With
allowance.
huge allowances, you're having free housing, you're having
Mm.
free what? Because in
Air
Africa, actually,
tickets.
the moment you are blessed to do some things, it is hard for you to get in. But when you get in, because
Mm.
you get, there is a lot that comes with it. Kata ngatosanga he was taking this bribe from a very poor person.
Okay. Kitegeere.
That is how dangerous corruption is. But anyway, corruption brings a lot of injustices. Likewise, we know that preventive efforts such as attitude modification through public information campaigns, general education, and improvement of the professional circumstances affect petty corrupt officials, but do not curb the major vice.
Mm.
Because we have had campaigns, we have had people being informed about this corruption thing, but still.
Mm.
Now, effective control of corruption is only possible through organizations independent of the government and through strict laws to enforce principles of good conduct at high government levels, including
Mm.
controls of foreign bank accounts.
Mm.
Because most of this foreign bank accounts.
Yeah.
Because once it remains here, it's going to be monitored.
Mm. Mm.
We know that freedom of the press
We
is
see that
essential.
we see that most of the government officials in Africa, these are people that have made investments outside Africa. These are people that have made investments in Western countries.
Mm.
These are people that have bought luxurious houses in those countries, Western countries. That's why sometimes when things go worse, you see there are people actually I didn't know that they do corruption, that they're behind all that process of corruption. But you know well that we have government officials, like people like heads, the former IGP
Mm. Mm. Mm.
of Uganda, of
Mm.
Ugandan police. The guy was banned from going to USA. They even reached an extent, they said, for all the properties that you have in USA, you're not going to have any access to these properties. I didn't know the guy had properties there. You're not going to access
Nga ki
back
ekyamutuma
accounts.
tebabikola?
Hmm?
Lwaki?
Yafaako awo nga bamaze okumusibaasiba awo. They even say they won't allow any of his relatives, neither the grandchildren, to go. If at all they got access, that their grandchildren, to go to USA. Okay.
Mm. Yeah, Kayihura. Obadde
I
ogamba.
say the former IGP.
That idiot. When that guy was being arrested, he had sacks of money, sacks of US dollars, sacks of mafaranga, sacks of French currency, euros, sacks of pounds. We just nga biri mu nsiko kumanya abo abantu bagoba ddala. Sacks, do you know sacks? Omanye ebisawo bino bye tuteekamu kasasiro ebyo naaba nga alina ebisawo ate kayibula nawe yafiya mwaka akafeesi kensi kyobaganyagwana mwana abo bantu batemu. They used to get buses. You remember when the government of Uganda wanted the Rwandese to go back to Rwanda? They used to go to fetch a few Rwandese. Kahula ng'ateekako abantu. Kyova olaba yalina hard cash ya ssente z'e Rwanda, amafaranga. Nga babajjamu mu bbaasi nga babakuba amasasi. Bonna nga mayiti bazitikka mu kimotoka. Ebbaasi ng'egenda. Kagame yagamba he doesn't want to see them in Rwanda. Museveni n'agamba mugenda. Ne babatikka abatono batandika okujja. So they would get them on their way. Kagame gives in money for him, he shoots these people dead. Nga bafa. Do you know how many buses? Each head, mu bus mubeeramu how many people?
Like 72, 64, 69,
82
either
staff
two,
ship.
yeah.
So they would shoot buli mutwe nga agulyako ssente. Ate hardi, you don't wire their money in the account. That's how they had. That's why we see even this oops, sorry. That's why we see last time where we had in Guinea, people had money in their in the sacks, not from banks. They always have this hard cash because at times when you put the money in the bank, there is always questions. There are laws that govern the banks and what you deposit and how you withdraw. So when the government officials are corrupt, usually they don't have this money in their banks. They always have this money with them. And like that dude you are talking about, he had a farm, Chiruhura, before you reach, you see as you are going in Mbarara, did you see that road that takes to the president's home? You saw that road. Now, for him, he was before you reach there. Before you see that road that takes to Rachtur. Have they ever showed you that road?
Yeah.
So for him, he was before Rajtura. But I'm telling you, he had a very big farm. I think he was confiscating people's lands. So when he confiscates, he fences that place. When he was being arrested, and actually Mohozi, the son of the president, was the one who led that convoy yagenda omukwata, yalinnya nnyonyi nga gayi asusse, yali atabuse obwongo. You see, because they knew he was doing this, naye ne bamusirikira. Okitegera? So guy n'akula n'afuuka untouchable. Ate the most painful thing that had the government of Uganda or the president was now he was dealing with Kagame. Okitegera? That scenario of shooting those people, Museveni yamusuula wala. Guy dude alabika yali agana ku overthrowing the government. Because the guy had become so thirsty, he had turned to a bloodsuck for money. Now, this is what corruption does. You enjoy that free money people give you all the time that you can't stop. So he went crazy. There are things he would do, and I'm like, how? Eshegera, ne bataka weesi. Ng'ate weesi yali agira muganda omuwala. Obisegedde. Bintu byawo chain eri awo yasaga. But the guy had become so crazy about money, so crazy about power, to the point even when the president would give orders, he would defile them. Do you remember one time when he said on TV, no one can touch me, not even the president? Do you remember? Do you remember that scenario when he made that clip? No one can touch me, I'm Kaihura stuff. So the guy, the corruption had amassed in the mind of that dude. He was ready, yalowooza mbu ali so untouchable. Bamusangawa ne buwumbi oba buwumbi 3 mu cash mu kisaka. Ate bw'oba owulira nti buwumbi 3 manya obulala baabusirikira. That joke with that dude. So corruption is a big, but of course, when we want to control corruption, we need the freedom of press. Freedom of press is essential for the exposure of corruption. Now, a lot of journalists don't have the freedom to speak about corruption. But if we were given the advantage to do that, maybe the chance, maybe we would expose apparently a lot of people. But since corrupt officials have a lot of money, they know where to touch, they know whom to talk to, well, they end up going scot-free.
So, gisoma bimaliza point. Sibitegeera simanyi nawo.
Badde wano. You know that we have legal approaches to that problem, but of course, these legal approaches differ between democratic and socialist countries. However, Africa and corruption laws are ineffective because top officials fail to enforce them from lack of authority or from fear of internal repercussions. And we have a lot of dishonest acts through supervision, the people doing the supervisions, and a lot, because in the first place you realize that somebody you are going to arrest for corruption is someone who is in a high power than you. Okay, but and at the end of the day, usually they always say that government is a user. They use you when they want you, and when they are done, they discard you. And most people are so afraid, because fighting corruption, we need a, a iron hand for someone to be strong for you to do such a thing. But usually people are afraid because Mazel to be done. Usually people are afraid because they know at the end of the day they may be arrested for this and nobody's going to help them. To the point that we have seen some people who have been strict on corruption being shot dead in their cars, on the streets, in their homes, because they are pinpointing out big officials. So they also need strong security because what they are doing is a life threatening act. All right.
So, corruption, like we said earlier, corruption is the abuse of any power for private gain. Corruption actually erodes trust, weakens democracy, hampers economic development, and further inequalities and poverty, social divisions, environmental crisis, among others. Corruption does a lot. And for people that call corruption, we said every single when we're here to educate, we're here to work in Africans. So corruption has very many categories. It is categorized into very many. We have um lots of corrupt types of corruption because to be called a sense anyway. The most common types and categories or categories of corruption, you have supply versus demand corruption, brand versus
Petty
PT
corruption.
corruption, conventional versus unconventional corruption, and public versus private corruption.
Mm.
But um, how does corruption link to poverty? We know
Mm.
that corruption increases income inequality and poverty through lower income growth.
Mm.
So, biased tax systems favoring the rich and well connected. Which again,
Mm.
hmm? So, poor targeting the social programs, use of wealth by the wealthy,
Lobby for favorite policy.
in families and relationships. So, if our society very well that very African countries they are creating social programs in African countries which have not people have not had gains, people benefit from those programs. Different countries going this, going different programs and culture, construction of yes, Uganda, about recent, the recent uh, the recent construction is considered among the world's most road express highway.
Mm.
I mean, entire express highway.
Mm.
It's that most road So,
Because ali mu blacklist. Ali mu blacklist. Kati sente ngeza nyakukuba. Up.
sente ze yazimuwa ku mande soli mugamba sente ze ndazikuwa mande ate ensawo nemugamba ensawo nja kukola ensawo yambulako bwe yakubulako okola kinze woŋŋamba ebiira mujjeko
Tusaka tonyumiza ebyaffe. So, you see, even in schools, why is corruption so immersed? Like during the days of campaign in schools, even if it's primary school, even in elementary schools, you find people giving in sweets. Tell you that. Oh, how do they call that? Yokuweereza omuntu ssente akulonde. It's corruption. It's corruption.
bribing, yeah.
It's bribing. So, how can schools allow such an act? At the end of the day, in class, they will teach that corruption is bad. But they will allow abaana okuba nga muleeta obusente. So I'm going to give you sweets so that you can vote for me. This is what I was asking you, that during the campaigns, have you ever seen in schools, have you seen that touch of corruption? But in most places where I've seen is someone even will tell you, vote for me, I'm going to take you to the canteen, stuff. Others will bring sweets, giving out sweets for votes, which is actually corruption. And as the president of Uganda is talking about fighting corruption, for example, yet when they are going in for campaign, for them they are doing corruption in Murwatu. Because me, I feel like this is corrupt. If you want something, we trust you. Why don't you come in and campaign? And corruption has caused a lot of issues in Africa. It has caused the economical decline. It has increased the rates of poverty. And I also mistrust that even people nowadays, even if you have achieved something on your own accord, someone will say, you understand? Those ones are in big government simply because they have some money. They might have given someone some money. To the point that usually people keep on asking, Wachikolotia. Wachikolotia question always is a campaign. It is not like you did a Babalos, that there is something you did for you to have access.
Corruption increases inequality and poverty through lower economic growth, biased taxes system, I think that's favoring the rich and well. So how does
They're well connected.
so how does corruption lead to poverty in African countries? So people may be wondering, how does this? We see, first and foremost, these people that do a huge the people that deal in this huge corruption, they don't invest in Africa. They take they actually the first corruption at first starts with the lobbying. They influence the government to set up certain programs. If these programs go through, these people get the money. People get the money. After people get that money, those people that have got that money, they don't invest. I was wondering, why is it that most of these government officials that are doing a lot of corruption, their home areas are not developed? Okitegere? They take investments out of Africa. They take the investments out of the country.
And they start investing outside.
Outside, they develop other countries. So how will the native of that country, how will a Ugandan, a Kenyan, hmm, how is she or he going to gain in this? How will this person gain in this? Yes, they influence the government in the so-called lobbying. We see a lot of taxes. People are taxed, and the poor, the people that are taxed too much. Again. So it is the same question I was asking you. How does corruption lead to poverty in African countries? How does poverty?
I mean, my market is very dirty. Ouch!
Well, put the work.
Oh God, I'm so good. Before you have done it too. Anyway, first of all, corruption diverts resources intended for public welfare. Corruption diverts resources intended for public welfare, such as healthcare and education, into the private hands. Check it out. I want to give you an example. Let me first focus on the public health care. When you went to school, we passed Mulago. Do you see all those clinics? All those as we are heading to school, we have one of the major hospitals, government hospitals, just Mulago Hospital. But as you're passing, there are a lot of clinics. And these clinics or these small hospitals or are branches of doctors who work in the other main hospitals. Now, people always say there is no medicine in this hospital. There is no medicine at Mulago. The moment you come, INNOSSETU, that you have something, they will tell you, they will write a drug, a medicine for you. And the next time they will be like, we don't have this medicine here. They will even tell you,
they even direct you,
we don't have this medicine, but when you go out, there is that hospital. Let me first call there and see.
Do you have this?
Do you have this medicine here? So okay, they have said they do. Can you rush out?
And
there is that and get that medicine. I've called. You are going to the very hospital of this very person who has subscribed to the medicine for you. And where have they got the medicine from? The very hospital. You understand?
And by the way, I was told that those main hospitals, referral hospitals in Africa, at the gate they have blood.
Yeah.
When you go there, they will be like, Chichimuruma.
And you'll be like,
Malaria, I don't go there.
There is too much crowd.
Jam.
Go to the other hospital. They're cheap. They're going
cheap.
to help you. So at the end of the day, we start complaining about our hospitals not having medicine.
There is a documentary I watched. This was a woman who had a young kid. Just Marelli. The woman took the kid to Mulago Hospital. Then reaching the gate, he found those blockers. They dress up like doctors. They dress up like doctors. They even have tags of Mulago Hospital. They look clean. They are dressed up like real doctors. They look to be doctors. Then they told her, no, you don't need to go that side. We can take you the hospitals near so that we can work upon your kid. We are very cheap, things of Mulago, even You know, they pretend to be doctors in the same hospital, but they are preventing you to go to the hospital. They are always at the gate. The woman accepted. You know, women accept easily. So the woman accepted. The woman accepted. So after accepting, the guy took her to his hospital. There are very many. Then after taking the kid there, they said the kid is having a problem with the kidney. These are the people who had never done operations before. That hospital women the kid, the situation of the kid. Then when she borrowed that money, I told you very well. That money I told you about, 2.5. 2.5. So she went and borrowed that money. She brought the money. They started operating the kid. The guys had never done any operations before. Which again, after operating the kid, they cut the kid. The kid had a severe wound. Infection. Yeah, a severe wound because it was a young kid, of course. After opening the wound, they spent there 2 weeks because omwana bamusanyalaza. Omwana n'alemerayo. Omwana for 2 days nga taddanga ngulu wadde okwasimula. Okitegeera? Nnyumiza. Then omwana ky'obola bw'olina okwegendereza ggwe. Omwana 2 days taddanga ngulu. Then when they saw that the kid wasn't waking up, they had done those fake operations. They even tied the kid back. But with fake neera bamutunga bubi. Okitegeera? The kid was our guys. Then the woman and they told her, we are going to refer you to the main hospital because it's like you are fake. Same people that told her, Omana yali mulwadde musu. He had no any other issue like kidney. Yeah, any disorders apart from malaria. Otegeera? N'amutwala ate mulaga ati gye baali bamukola ki? Omwana ali unconscious. Sente bazitutte. Omwana, the woman that the then the woman with much grief, with too much sorrow, she went back to the hospital. When the guy had left, days had left, they packed everything. Dead already. I guess the child was dead already, and they started telling the mom the child is unconscious. This because they told her because they told her call the guy on your chest. Yeah, but the guy, the kid was unconscious. This is the information people have when you're desperate. I don't know. You are desperate, yes, but someone who is also asking for 2.5 million to treat malaria. So when you go to the hospital, they check you and they say your child has kidney failure. Yeah. And kidney failure, in fact, they must have removed that little boy's kidney. I think a lot of people are just, I don't know, I'm so bold. She was diverted. She was diverted from going to the main hospital by those people. They are not doctors. They are not doctors.
nze gw'olaba wano ate tewali. Ndi muntu ali conscious, more especially when people start saying shit. I rather ngenda wakiri mu malwaliro agasusseeko mwago. Because I've seen these scenarios where even doctors are cutting open women claiming that they have fibroids. Some women have been operated on even when they have no fibroids. Some of them have been like on family planning. Someone goes on family planning for a long time. She's having her menstruals flow heavily for a very long time. And the doctors, instead of informing this person that it is the family planning you're taking that is causing this, they start telling them, we never seen Bamundabana. That's why that thing is very common, even on TV. So they know Bizimba Munabana is a woman will not understand. And the moment you touch that part on a woman in Gatia, so a lot of people have operated on various women in the name of we are removing fibroids, you are paying 3 million. Your husband even goes ahead and invests. My woman has fibroids when they don't. Kata, you get to know there is one lady, Bamugamba, she has the fibroids. And so the doctor was like, we are going to operate on you because you have fibroids, and if you don't deal with it so very fast, you may become barren, you are stuff. So the woman trembled. Now the husband was in that city. I tell you, I'm saying this after. But I'm gonna it's about fibroids. They operate you from here. So come this side. So they prepared to go. Of course, you cannot go to a hospital where you have not been going daily and tell them that, I have fibroids, so I've come for an operation. Those people will also ask you to go for checkup so that they can have a clear view of what is disturbing. So she went for checkup, and everyone was like, okay, you are telling us you have fibroids, but we are not seeing anything. Why is it you don't have fibroids? So but I do have fibroids. Actually, I was supposed to be operated on last week, but my husband was like, I should come and do it from the side. So I have, they said you don't have. She said I have. They said you don't have fibroids. So you can see that is how she, but the doctors had decided to operate on her. One, they want money. See, and you cannot cut open someone, because the issue of operation, it is you are always between life and death. Check it out. You can come back, you cannot, you may not come back. So how do you cut open a wound? You find even someone has high blood pressure, maybe someone has diabetes, maybe someone has some other diseases, but for you, you don't care. You are looking at the 3 million you're asking from this person, and you're cutting them open for no reason whatsoever. You cut and close. Someone should have that scar on, but for you, you have taken the 3 million. They go through that pain, the medicine, and the whatever. For you, you are doing it for 3 million. And people have, and this has become so very rampant. That's why I always say you don't go to one hospital for a final conclusion in Africa. Women are being forcefully operated on when they are giving birth, because the payment of a cesarean birth is high. You find that you are paying like 3 million in some hospitals, and the good ones we are paying even 6. So, and these people make sure at any time you come, you cannot push a baby. We are going to operate on you, because for them it is important. Kyova naye sagenda kuzzaako shaka mangu nsooke mpone bulungi bambuulire lwaki baba bannongoosa. Ate ne mmala ndutwala kati baba bannongoosa. Ate bwe bannongoosa kubeerako limiti ya beebi, tebasobola kukkiriza kuzaala baana basuuse mu 5.
Other causes.
So
that happens, but it is by first of all poverty. Asking myself, how Why? How allows these people to be at the gate of the referral hospital? They look like doctors. They have tags of that particular hospital, that government hospital. They are always there. Why don't they just that they are there?
Order from above. They have order from
They
above.
give them a certain percentage to the hospital
You know, in
administration.
such kind of
Mm,
hospitals, in
mm,
such kind of hospitals,
mm.
everyone is trying to maneuver. You are doing your dirty thing, do your dirty shit. Wokwata okwasiza. As this one has others on the gate, olia inabali munda. Oshegera.
Mm.
When you pass through the gate, abo ne bafiira,
You're going to
n'oli
get someone inside
ayandikuloopye naye alina abali wali ku
balinze.
bafunira mu ddwaliro
There is an
kitanda.
incident which happened when when uh, I lost my brother.
Mm,
At, he died in a government hospital.
mm,
Then when the guy had just died, when
mm.
the dude had just died,
Yeah,
mm,
yafiira mu ddwaliro ki?
Chirudu.
Mm.
So when the dude died,
Your brother committed.
when my brother died,
Mm,
at that time of dying,
mm.
when they said they want 700, 700.
For what?
Certain man, they wanted 700 at that moment. 700. So he died
Oba
around
omuteeka mu mokyare oba
mortuary for what? Someone has
oba
died.
mukuba empiso.
The boat, they were episodes of Amukuba. He died. They bought the coffin immediately. My sister was there, so they bought the coffin immediately. But these people didn't allow that. They say that to make a document that he has died, to make things that are funny in this world, like to make a document that someone has died, to make, to make a clarification. If they don't make that document, he remains alive. So to make there are things that are very. It was a clarification that he has died. For me, sometimes I ask people, they call them silly question, but there is a way I interpret things. So you can't tell you're writing, you're writing down, you're writing
certificate of birth and certificate of death.
Kati certificate of death eyamba ki?
Eyamba bannaki.
Mwana, but there are certain things. Maybe for me, I take things the way I think, but you can't write a document to clarify that someone has died and you need 700.
Oh, that's
A
money.
mere photocopying something. Yeah? We need 700. So clarifying that someone has died.
A certificate of death is an official document issued by relevant authority. So apparently, they typically, this is usually done by government confirming the death of an individual. Information such as the date, time, cause of death, personal details, like the deceased person's name, age, and sometimes occupation. But of course, they say it is crucial for illegal and administrative purposes. But Katwe Yalita, your brother, Yalita really necessary. Twali nti mukazi we yali ajja claiming as he wasn't the government official nti omukazi anajja claiming.
Funny. Even it was a certain and you want money. So things that the world has driven us to which I don't really understand how they work very well. But yeah.
When they say, you say, but I say if they don't issue that certificate, it's not dead. So,
Give you that cops. If you don't, if you
Eh.
don't, hey, if you don't
oh
pay,
no.
if you don't pay that amount, the
So
700.
you pay.
Yes, we had to pay.
700.
What? We had to pay. Tebasobola kuwa mulambo without paying that amount of money. You have to first pay. You have to first pay. You thought I was joking about this.
Well, I thought you were too smart that you didn't
Ash.
pay.
I didn't pay. Like how?
Ngubalekera.
The guy died earlier. He died earlier, but he died around 9.
Mm.
So my sisters were like, no, if his life is done, let's take him. So by morning we can do the burial, what the stuffs. But we picked because that money wasn't there. Had to solicit because a lot of money had gone when he was sick. So when we went, we waited up to another whole day. Nga tebagutuwa bo bali babalagulira.
Bagugyamu ebintu abo naye bamamba siru. Basooka temwamusanga bamuyuzizza.
Tebamuyuza tebamuyuza naye remember was my bro.
Oba tewamulaba yena.
Namulaba. Omwampulana tumwoza yali talina ebyo nti oba balina kyemugyamu.
Omusaayi ogwo kiki? Omutima gwayabika.
Kirabika. Namulaba alina omusaayi we.
Munyiindo kulabika
tegwali mungi but
anti balabika bamukirindinga naye nga omusaayi gwalabika gwava mu nnyindo.
Nokubanga yayabika omutima.
Naye yali yalekerawo okukozesa ebidagala.
Era abikozesa naawe.
Ngamba by the time you were hospital.
Yali talina kuba yali takwatiki. Ndabikozesa.
Anti kati awo naye nedda yali teyeetaaga ddwaliro. Yali yeetaaga rehab. Yali yeetaaga rehabilitation mukwano.
Omutwe gwamuluma natuka ekiseera n'agwedda.
Yali yeetaaga rehabilitation.
Nga tekyategeera abantu, takyabamanyi.
Nabo baba mwalimu ejjadu.
Lyalimu naawe. Lyalimu ate lyali lisingamu. Lyalimu oyo omusajja oyo taata waffe omuto yali yamwewerera nnyo. Oli mulezi simanyi oli mulezi yalina ekifaananyi kino kimukyaba obukulu jako nga talidde naye oli mulezi yalina ekibuli
Ekiganda kyo kiri.
ate nze oli muganda gwenfaanana zanno nga talina gwatya naoko nga tolina kyomugamba. Ate oyo omusajja yali amwekengera nga amutya buli lunaku. Omusajja oyo daddy waffe ng'abeera amwekengera ng'amutya. Okay, talk about other causes of corruption in African countries.
That's a sad story, by the way. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
The sun has disappeared. The sun has. Nagenza wakawuka ne kangwa ku mumiro weda nno kankoloza naye olwo olutalo nalwawedda benze kankemangi.
Jjukira ebintu bigwe.
Yogere ki?
Ebyo oyinaawo.
Bino ebirala biri mu magezi. So throughout, by the way, there is at times it gets so hard for African countries to develop because of this issue of corruption that we even see a lot of young youths on the streets, not because they don't have the potential, but because they don't have the money. First of all, if you're going to get a job, someone wants you to give them money. And at the end, that's why we see people who have the potential or the knowledge of course, doing carrying out, some responsibility job wise,
mm,
are not given that opportunity. And that's why we are seeing there is a certain category of
mm,
people that is, working in offices, and you realize that someone's and brother, you enter the entire organization, you see from the top to the sweeper, they
mm,
are all relatives, far distant relatives, cousins, what, when they are all one family altogether. And this is caused by corruption. At times, me, when I see people advertising for vacancies, job vacancies, I don't even bother. I don't even bother to go there, because usually they're just advertising the things to just hide the truth. Watch it
mm,
again.
mm.
So my car.
So, a lack of transparency in African governments, we see that may undermine the trust of institutions, hindering socioeconomic progress, and poverty levels increase. We see very many very many government institutions in African countries. Um, they don't have they don't have like they don't have that confidence over very many things. Actually, the too much tribalism, like where is about tribalism in African governments, but tribalism accompanies corruption in African countries. If you ever see a certain tribe leading in certain government positions in African countries, that is automatic corruption. These are the people that support people. This is what Maria has been talking about. These are people that support their own people. These are people that make sure that in every sector of the country they put their own people. They put people of that certain tribe, and this has increased, of course, corruption. So these people, of course, they can stay in power. They bribe everyone. They buy everyone. These are people that have bought villages. These are people that have done lobbyings that have not helped people in African countries. They have done, we see a lot of government programs. We see a lot of programs actually that have been put out to eradicate poverty. Just like it is in the mind of people in Africa, it is in the mindset of people in Africa that Africans, they are poor. They put a lot of measures to fight and eradicate poverty in African countries through lobbying. They say, for now, we are going to give out loans to people. The government is now issuing in the budget this amount of money so that we can help out people, we can help out farmers in the villages, we can give them fertilizers. These are the things that are giving out to people. But a small group of people gain this. A small group of people gain or get money from these programs that have been run by a certain group of people, but the rest of the money is taken by those people, the so-called robbers. because they make a plan for a government, they influence the government over something, and for their benefits, for where they can achieve in that program. So poverty and corruption in African countries work in hand, because they are the same things that have caused instabilities in very many African countries. Hmm? Jangu tumalirize, jangu tumalirize, jangu tumalirize, jangu tumalirize. Zayo plus. Zayo plus.
Bring tea. Hungry.
Jangu tumalirize, jangu tumalirize, jangu tumalirize, jangu. Okay. Jangu tumalirize, jangu tumalirize. So for those that you guys read about that, I know it's late for those people outside Africa. If you're in USA, I know it is around midnight. But if you are following up maybe on Facebook, YouTube, you can tell us what you feel about corruption in African countries. For now, we believe that the reason why very many Africans they are poor, it's because of the too much corruption that we have in African countries. That's what we believe in. So I don't know what you say about that. I don't know what you have about that. What feelings do you have about corruption and poverty lines among very many African people?
I refuse to take.
Nitaotsoke tumalirize. How can you do that? Kusaawa eno. Kusaawa eno. Nagondigoweterereza. Kati ate ekyo ekirowoozo kijjeewo amangu ago. Twala eri, twala eri. Twala eri. Twala kuli. Twala kuli. You went with them. They're not here. No, naye kwebali.
Dakikameka?
Ojjazira. So corruption, we know that corruption perpetuates poverty. It skews decisions and diverts scarce funds, denying poor people access to basic social services. I was saying, corruption perpetuates poverty. So it skews decisions and diverts scarce funds. So denying poor people access to basic social services and resources to improve their livelihoods, where better off people can find private solutions to public failures, water filtration generators, private schools, and hospitals. So disadvantaged groups of people have no alternative. Corruption creates viscous cycle. If poor people can't actually speak up for their rights and demand accountability for their leaders, their needs aren't met, and they can't escape poverty. If at all you can't stand up and say, you can't stand up and make audit over a president, over a political leader, over financial ministers in African countries. Okitegeera, that is poverty. So the role of corruption is usually is some reasons of transparency of transparency. Huh?
Mm.
So despite of the increased actually global investments in recent years in Africa, corruption remains a key reason for the failure of to combat poverty through coalitions with the public and private sectors and across civil society. We know that it promotes the fight against corruption and the integral of global development, but corruption.
Transparency International is
Mm,
it is a project that was of course created to
mm,
avoid poverty, to fight poverty and
mm,
corruption in
mm,
Africa.
mm,
We have seen this being exercised in different African countries, but of course,
tugenda tuyamba. Mm.
is but in this summer world,
Nange tagenda tuyamba kuba.
so it has been fighting corruption in countries like Zambia
Mm,
and in some other African countries. It has actually focused on very many African countries, though. Like we said, that corruption is very, it has entered the depth of African people. It is very hard for this very organization to adapt methods that are going to fight corruption. Though we have seen it in Mozambique, we have seen it in Ghana, we have seen it in Zimbabwe, it is also in Uganda, we have seen it in Kenya. We still have these things. Why did Africa decide to have this kind of organization? Because they understood and realized that corruption has preyed on them for a very long time, that they needed at least an organization. But me, I would think, since this is an international Africa organization, it would make more sense if, like, we have people from other countries fighting corruption in other countries. For example, if, like, we decide to bring Kenyans from Kenya to come and fight corruption in Uganda, I feel like we would see a difference. Also get that. And we also to see Uganda, this very, of course, organization carrying Ugandans from Uganda to go and fight corruption in other countries, let's say, for example, Kenya or Ghana. We may see this because they will have come to this country for that purpose. And at least I know there is a way they would hold these people mercilessly. You understand? Rather than, because, given that calmness of Africa, and but now everyone who doesn't want the society to judge them being the cause of other people's downfall. And this is a culture of African system, by the way. There are times that, like, that softness wages a lot of negativity, more especially if you are not bold enough to not decide what the society is going to think. But of course, Africa, we always think about what the society thinks more before even what we think towards things. So we get that cloud judgment, and usually, because now assume that I've arrested you, innocent, and you've been doing corruption. The next thing, the people of your village will be like, she's that lady. That lady is the one who took our son to. But they're not looking at the fact that your son was committing crimes. They are going to look at me as someone who did something bad to arrest you for that matter. So this has clouded the judgment of a lot of people who are carrying out such kind of things. Like, let me not be the reason why someone is going through that. Let me not be the reason why their family is experiencing this. But if we have, since we have this kind of this kind of organization, of course, all over Africa, um, the Transparency International, it would work more or better if at all we would at least have us we intermingle within this coalition, or we intermingle to embark on this journey of fighting corruption. Because I assume that we have got people from different countries to come and aid into this. We get the investigative journalists, we get those investigative corruption officers and officials to be on ground. I believe that we will see more, because corruption needs to be held with a very strong and iron hand, with no sympathy whatsoever. So I guess maybe I feel like that could be one step for us to succeed. But you cannot bring the very people to fight corruption. You don't bring the very corrupt people to fight corruption. If you look at the triangle of employment, you realize it is one tribe that is highly employed in governments and stuff like that. So you cannot bring that again, because there is always that soft spot people have for each other. You understand, which makes it very hard for people to fight such a vice. Alright, whatever.
God is our man. We know that corruption also erodes the trust we have in the public sector to act in our best interests. It wastes our taxes and rates meant for important community projects. Sorry, like I say, like what, like ngawe nagambi, okitegera. So this results in poor quality services or infrastructure or projects never getting off the ground. Do you know that you know how a manyanga is called in English? Manyanga.
Volongoto.
Volongoto. Hmm? How is it called in English?
Oh, that's a rich word. Bazungu don't have that rich word.
Hmm? So all how can I say this in English? The manyanga. Like if you go on public projects, on public programs. I don't may this happens in all African countries. I don't know what those people that are outside Africa they have to say about this. But if you go to public hospitals, if you see infrastructures that have been constructed by the government, if you go to government schools, what else? Everything, anything that is related to government, where the government has a touch, where the government has a hand, these are things that have been done in their own way. You find things that are not organized, things look unserious.
That's manyanga.
Yeah. So things are unserious. If you go to government schools, you know what is there.
Yeah.
You won't know what is there.
Yeah.
And these are the schools that have qualified teachers. Some government payroll. You must be qualified for that. These are people, and those people that are in government schools, these are people that have got education from government universities. Okitegeera?
Oganya tunywe
Tusooka kumaliriza naawe. Oyagala ogendeyo otandika okutambulira eyo otandika okwetooloola.
I promise, Ned.
Sooka tumalirize.
I promise.
Kama wagenze nakwebaka.
Ate nze mambe yaliko.
Toyogera linnya eryo wabula. Yajja gamba nti tumugeya. Yagamba nti tumugeya. Toyogera. Gamba nti tubeera tumwogerako. So, like I said, I'm sorry for that. Like I said, if you look at government schools, you look at government hospitals, you will see a lot of unseriousness from those hospitals. But the governments, different governments in Africa, they invest a lot in government hospitals. But these are the government hospitals where you don't find drugs there. Why? Yes, yet they issue a budget every year about health and what it's going to do according to the population that we have. Together, all these things are planned in the budget. But there are certain you may be suffering from a certain illness, and they will tell you we don't have medicine for this. You have to buy it outside in a government hospital where someone could have got hope.
Mm-hmm.
Stege.
Mm.
So that is Africa, corruption and poverty. So now you get up.
Mm. Sina magezi gako irakatse.
You got it, Ronald. Hmm?
Ale,
Hmm?
ndali.
Naye nga siri kulola. We know that corruption increases income inequality. We know that some people become rich, whereas others are poor. And they become too rich.
That's why everyone would want to be corrupt.
Hmm?
Maybe that's why everyone wants to be corrupt. Because they think they'll be rich.
They become too rich.
Mm-hmm. Where that you can make her.
Abiri. Kugira tumalirize essaawa eno zinaawerera nnya nga tumala.
Essimu yange.
Hmm?
Ogira ebiranga bonna.
So African leaders and this the kind of of poverty that we have in Africa, it has gone beyond leaders, because these are the same leaders that even bribe bribe average people in African countries. And actually these people amount they are bribed, but they don't know what's behind this bribing.
Mm.
Someone is bribed for little money, but is going to suffer the entire life of him or her.
Mm.
Hmm? Like you talked about during election time where people were given cash. How
Mm.
much? 20K, 10K.
Yeah.
In 2018, the other place where I was,
Mm.
no, it wasn't 2018, I think, but I was working somewhere. Then in that area, we were electing a leader,
Mm.
these local leaders. Hmm?
Mm.
LC5, forward, a chairman.
Mm.
So the guy moved on. There was a market there. The guy used to move around giving people 20K. I was like, oh, 20K for what? 20K to do what for me? And people were excited about because the notes were new. And people were excited. Yeah, yeah. People were excited with the 20K. Ngalaba kapya nansooka keeyisa nako bw'ati wa mu bbaati. 20K. People were bribed with 20K.
Yes, I used to buy with the 50 in Kampala.
50.
Well, fighting corruption in Africa requires multifaceted approach involving government institutes, civil society, and the public. Well, I feel like if the government of Africa want to fight corruption, it should have strategies, but these strategies we've not seen them involve. I know we can overcome. First of all, we have to strengthen. We have to strengthen institutions that are fighting, this poverty. We enhance the independence and effectiveness of the anti-corruption agencies. We implement and enforce transparent procurement procurement processes, of course, where now we have seen a lot of governments in Africa building organizational institutions that are fighting corruption. Um, but these institutions are just in the, names. We are not seeing these institutions taking actions. For example, in Uganda, we have the Corruption Correlation Institution, but we don't see these people. They have offices, they have cars, they have people working there, people are running in and out all the time, but we have not seen them effective. We have not seen their effectiveness. Because at the end of the day, such kind of institutions are, of course, attached to government. And when these institutions are attached to governments, definitely we shall not see the effective work, since it's even the government that institutions are fighting for. The legal reforms. We need to enact and enforce strong anti-corruption laws. We ensure swift and fair legal proceedings for corruption cases. If we had put strong corrupt enforcement laws that, if we had put a strong enforcement and corruption laws, I believe that people would be so scared. For example, if laws like if you are caught in bribing, or if you are caught in corruption, you lose your position and your license to do whatever you do. I believe people will be fear to do this, because at the end they may lose their license and fail to get judged. We need to promote transparency. There is little transparency, so we need to encourage transparency in the government operation and financial transactions. We also need to implement and enforce access to information laws. Most of people don't know what the law has. Most people don't know the information about law. That's why even some people who have not committed crimes end up going to prison. And that's why you see the criminals are out, and the people who are and the non-criminals are going to prison, because most of the people don't know what laws are. So if somebody gets to understand what corruption is all about, I feel like government should be issuing out handouts every time to different institutions, to even the local people, because African governments have the potential to issue out these handouts. So if handouts are issued out, I believe people will get to read more about corruption and know, like I said, corruption has become a day-to-day thing that people, when they are carrying out corruption, they don't even understand that what I'm doing is not right, what I'm doing is against the laws. You understand? But if you get to understand what corruption is, and I believe most people are very ignorant about this, but unless they are touched, unless they feel the weight of what is being asked for, people don't really know what corruption is all about. But if by means they get to understand what it is, I believe they will fight it. So the government needs to issue out things like handouts and stuff that teach about corruption and teach about what it means, to take corruption and bribe and stuff like that, and what, of course, comes along with that. Then we need the whistleblower protection. Like I was saying, we need to establish mechanisms to protect whistleblowers who report corruption. This is what I was saying. A lot of people have lost their lives through this, to the point that everyone is so scared. Like, if I do this, first of all, those are big guys. I'm just me, Maria. So if I go ahead and arrest someone, I let the world know this person is a corrupt person, the next time you'll find Maria dead in her house. So everyone is so afraid of bringing these culprits out, because at the end of the day, the person who is up there
One time,
is a big person.
one time I was traveling, the bali nakunyumiza
Mm, mm,
so those guys, I was traveling with those people. There were there were security people. Then, like we used to find out, we reach up with the traffic officers on the way. But these are the people that babera mulinga bagamba, don't stop.
mm,
Those are just so they use just move. The traffic officers could stop them and they just move. So there is that fear among people that nigo imiliza.
mm,
The guys had no number plate.
mm. So those are things. A lot of people have the potential to fight. To fight. There is a comment down there. A lot of people have the potential to fight such kind of things, but they are so scared. Hi, Royal Constructor. Hello, 100%. Yeah. A lot of people, Royal Constructor, thank you for coming through, dear. A lot of people have the willingness, okay, of fighting corruption. They have the willingness, they would love to, but they are not protected enough. Because at the end of the day, the people who carry out corruption are big officials, the people who have money. All right. So you like, if I talk about them, I mean, nobody's going to have my back. So that's why these people keep on doing this. And they do it knowing they're untouchable. They're like, okay, who is going to stop me from doing this? No one can stop me from doing it. So, but if at all the whistleblowers are protected, if everyone knows that if you bring out such a person, you are protected by the world, it will be easy for us to fight corruption. We also ought to encourage a culture that supports and values the whistleblowers. That if at all Maria has identified a corrupt official, let the entire world stand strong with her. Don't leave her alone to this because she's not doing this for her. She's doing this for you. She's doing this for everybody. So we need that unity as we are fighting this corrupt. She now First of all, and also the public awareness and education. Now, educate the public about the detrimental effects of corruption, foster a culture of ethics and integrity in the society. Most people, like I was saying, know little about corruption. People are carrying out these things not knowing.
Unknowingly, yeah.
Someone will say, I'm just giving you a token of appreciation. Don't worry, if I get that job, I'll give you a token of appreciation.
I know of a person. I know of a certain woman. She was linking someone to a job.
Mm.
She was a nurse and linking another nurse to a certain job. This was a grown-up woman. Then she told the girl that you have to be giving me. The girl was getting over 2 m, over 1.5 m. Then the woman said that if I link you and things become successful, you're going to be giving me 500 per each salary you get.
Mm.
Let's take a per each salary you get. So people are doing this not knowing that that is corruption, that is bribing. Let's take a continue.
So there is also the international cooperation, like I was saying. We need countries need to collaborate with the international organization and neighboring countries to address cross-border corruption. This is what I was saying, that if at all like this organization that was formed within the African countries to fight corruption, if at all we would have different corruption task force across borders, we see like Kenyan task forces coming down to Uganda, it would be a different thing. Let me tell you. For example, if like we had a Kenyan cross border like police now on the roads trying to arrest or charge those people who are defiling the road laws. Do you know if it was a Kenyan officer standing on the road, it would be very hard for people to come out and talk nonsense because this is someone you don't know. You don't know if you will see them tomorrow. You don't know where they come from. You're just seeing some other people. Definitely, you will have to comply with what they are saying. So I feel like the collaboration. No, if it can, if we have what you call the East African community, it can, because if I'm able to move to Kenya with just my national ID, then what the we just have that task force, not like we are having. We train those people purposely for that. We are not looking at you bringing. I just use that as an example, but we are not looking at someone bringing police officers from Kenya to come. But again, it was easy. How about when Kenya was sending police officers to Haiti? Where they know how can it? If they were able to go to Haiti and do it, then what is it? What is it about them trying to do something for a neighboring place? So I feel like anything is possible if at all there is that mutual understanding. If at all the governments decide like to say we can do this together. Except that of course it is very hard because African countries, the uniting is a far-fetched word that may not of course be reached. But of course, we see that, like I said, the international corporations, and also we need to exchange best practices and experience with other nations. We have to exchange the best practices and experiences. Let's learn to copy. Like, how did these other places or how did these other countries fight corruption? How did they overcome this? What is Korea doing now? How is Korea handling corruption? How is these countries that don't have a high rate of corruption handling? So we pick those styles, or we pick whatever way they to right to combat, and also of course bring it down to Africa, and we try to see if this method can work for us. I feel like we need to imitate the good things from other places than imitating the bad. So of course, the civil society engagement, we empower the civil society organization to monitor and report corruption, encourage active citizen participation in the governance. uh, we need to encourage the active citizen. Let every citizen, because first of all, a government is the people.
mm,
Now, most people don't know that they are the government. Most people in Africa think the government is their political leaders, but these political leaders are actually we are the bosses of these political leaders. We are the bosses. We are the ones who make up a government now. If until the Africans realize that we make the government, we are the government, it will be very hard. But of course, we have to know that we have the power to monitor and report corruption. We have the power to participate in the governance, since we are citizens, not like sitting around and waiting for a certain tribe to take lead all the time. And we feel for us, since we come from the other different side, we cannot be leaders. I mean, those are the people who are supposed to be leaders. Um, the people should also know that they have the political will. We The countries have to demonstrate strong political will to tackle corruption at all levels of government, hold political officials accountable for corrupt practices. Most political officials think that since we are big political officials, we are the government. This is what I was saying. They are not the government. We put them up there through our void. So if we exercise and if we decided to identify those people and know that they are not above us, actually, I feel like we shall see us combat corruption in other things. Now, the ethical leadership, of course, we have to promote and reward ethical behavior among political and business leaders, develop leaders who patriotize public welfare over personal gain. But of course, it is very funny that most people who have done goodwill throughout the existence of governments or throughout the existence in Africa have ended up badly. We have not seen them being remembered throughout history. We have had good leaders who have given everything. They have given their life, everything they have, to the betterness of their people, but they have ended up dying like dogs, that now they're just remained in stories. Their families are not remembered. Their children are living on the poverty line. The example of people who have died for good cause has not lived long to be imitated or to be wished to be lived by other people. So living a goodwill in Africa is patriotic. But if you decide to say that it is something that leaves a significance, apart from emotional impact in the hearts of those who understand what these people did, we don't see tangible aspects. We don't see tangible things that these people have left behind. I'll give an example of Thomas Sankara. He gave in everything. He gave his life, his everything, in, of course, Burkina Faso. Who fought corruption to 0%. He died like a dog. He was forgotten. His children are never remembered. nobody usually talks about him in Burkina Faso, apart from other countries, of course, who get to learn about him. So we have not had that motivational experience of people who have done goodwill. So everyone is like, well, I'm doing this after all. Nobody's going to remember me, but my family will. That's why we see people selfishly trying to strive so high, striving so hard for their family, because at the end of the day, it is their family that is going to remember them. So people neglect what the society sees, people neglect the judgment of the society, people neglect what other people think towards what they are doing. And that's why there is too much of selfishness and greed, because the people who have died for the community, the people who have lost for the world, are oftenly forgotten, and their legacy is only seen in the stories and the books, and actually some other people have died completely. People always believe that materials always remain, and that's why people sell their nation to build houses, and that's why people sell their nation to have cars. People sell their nation to buy apartments outside Africa, because they know even when they go, people are going to look at an apartment and say, that apartment belongs to Maria, and they will not look at the dirty things Maria did. So I feel like we need to have that. We need to always put that remembrance in the mind, give them the right and give them the respect that they deserve, so that everyone should be striving so hard to make sure that that legacy of being remembered as a good person is seen when they are still alive. So I guess Africa should change the way it looks at people who are doing good things, and also so that next time if someone wants to sacrifice their lives for the good cause or for the goodwill, they should know that my children will stand and know that their dad did something great or their mother did something great. So other people will be like, I'm not going to die and leave my children, for something that is not going to be remembered. So I guess as we are trying to combat corruption, those are the aspects that we should focus on. T, Innosetu, what do you gotta say?
Thank you guys that have been watching us on Black Hot Fire Network. For those that have been watching us on Facebook, Black Hot Fire Radio, Twitter, Black Hot Fire Net One, and of course, YouTube channel Black Hot Fire Network. Thank you for guys who have been watching us. Royal Constrictor, thank you for that great comment, and thank you for following up the discussion. Um, for now, we are going to end this segment, and we're here to come back in another segment in Tokumawa from South America.
I don't know, but we are coming back.
We are coming back soon. Keep tuned in, keep watching, keep supporting, liking, inviting friends to watch us every day, because we always talk about African decent people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. See you in the next episode of the show. It has been me, Innosetu, with my colleague
Africa Maria,
Kampala, Uganda.